Thank you for your calm patience. I've finally gotten through. I had a major technical issue, and it's all working now. My guest tonight is world-renowned, it may be interplanetary renowned, Alex Collier. Good evening, Alex. Good afternoon. And
hey.
I hear you've been living it up with the mead and the wenches this afternoon.
Well, there was no mead, and I don't drink. But yeah, today I went to the Renaissance Fair in Larkspur, Colorado. It happens for 8 weeks every summer here, and I had a birthday on Wednesday.
Oh, happy birthday!
Thank you. And I decided that I was going to celebrate my birthday at the Renaissance Fair. And that's what I did. I drove down there this morning and got there when it opened. And we are doing this live broadcast from the parking lot
Fabulous.
Of the Renaissance Fair.
And
so it was fun. It was fun. It's just like a whole different world. And you go and you buy something to eat, and my lord, what can I get for you? Thank you, my lord. Here's your change, my lord. And, can't say I don't like that. I do. It's just been fun.
It's nice to feel special, isn't it?
So,
it's nice to feel special.
It is. And it's just a different environment completely. And, it's been fun. I've enjoyed it. And all of the great costumes, and, I saw jousting today as well, and that was fun. So, yeah, it's cool. It's really cool.
Excellent. Because I know
especially for someone like me
someone like you who's been... No, go ahead. Someone like you who's been...
who's a history buff. I love that stuff.
Well, that was what I was going to bring up. That you are you do like history, and what's your connection with Ivanhoe? Because you have this email address, Ivanhoe. What's your connection with Ivanhoe?
My great grandfather on my mother's side was Walter Scott, not only the sheriff of Edinburgh, Scotland, but also the author of Ivanhoe, Lady Chatterley's Lover, and many other books. His daughter Patricia came to the U.S., and that is my great grandmother.
Wow.
So on my mother's side.
So it's so you've got a literary kind of background there. And that's one of the...
Yeah, on my mom's side.
Here's one of the questions that I want to ask you is, a long time ago you said, if I had to do this all over again, I'd write books. And I know that,
Right.
well, a few years ago we started a series of interviews about this character called Captain Denard.
Yes.
Well, number one, I would love to, if you want the book proofread, I'd love to proofread, I proofread one of Sean's books as well. I'm very good with spellings and things.
I'll take you up on that, JP.
And
I'll take you up on that.
And I made this little theme up when you were just humming a tune, so but it was the idea of kind of a historical type, sci-fi type thing of something that happened long in the past that to us would be still in the realms of science fiction and fantasy. What's I mean, for instance, you haven't really spoken about any of the adventures of Captain Denard. Do you have any, like, your fingertips, as it were?
You mean some of the things from the book?
Yeah, something that you know
Sure,
happened. Yeah,
sure. I'll share something with you.
That'd be fantastic.
Let's see. Him and his crew, take their Dragonfly, that's the name of Denard's ship, from the moon, and they are heading towards, an area of the galaxy that is more or less forbidden. And they are looking for the secret of creation, the secret of matter. And again, I wrote this for kids, so, and what happens is they go through these many steps and journeys in order to get there, and they have to make repairs to their ships because of things that have happened to the Dragonfly. And while they're there, they pick up 2 extra crew members who are from the constellation of Antares, who have a very different skill set. And so each one of them now has a different skill set, and it's a very diverse group. Denard is the only Earth human. All the rest of them are extraterrestrials. And they come together, starting out as a survival, and they come together as a team to complete this mission. And the mission is to make sure that this technology, quantum technology, doesn't fall into the hands of a dark race that would use it to control, manipulate, and or destroy physical life forms, except for the ones that they deem appropriate. And it just goes on, and what happens is they finally find out where, through legends and talking to the crew, they find out where this thing is, where the myth of this device is. And this device was built by the Patal. And the Patal were the founders. They created the wormholes. They created the galaxies. They put all the solar systems together. They created the maps, all right, and the multidimensional layers in the galaxies. So but they left a piece of equipment behind, the Patal did, and it's in a place that's incredibly secure. So what they don't realize is that once they are able to get through this barrier that's been created, and what's interesting is that they go through several shifts, physical as well as spiritual shifts while trying to get through this barrier. And what they realize when they get through the barrier into this hidden system where this device is, they have jumped dimensions. They went from third, they are now in fourth. And they don't realize it until they get through the barrier, that they realize they've jumped physicality. They're now in fourth dimension. So that's why their device is so hard to get to, because not only could you not get through the barrier, but if you didn't have it together, spiritually, you would implode because you jumped this dimension. And again, this is just a story. Anyway, they get into the story and they get into the dimension, and what they find out is that there was one particular race that is protecting the device, and there's another race at the other end of this system that wants the device, and they want to use it to dominate and leave the cloud, enter the barrier from the inside going out, and take this device and conquer other worlds. You know, it's the typical battle of good and evil, light and dark, different perspectives, etc. That's basically the bulk of it. And I had a lot of fun writing it. I wrote it for my kids originally. Well, it's not originally. I still did write it for them, but we'll see. I'm just about done rewriting it, and I've added a whole lot more of new stuff to it, especially with a lot of the new discoveries from quantum mechanics, quantum physics regarding the brain and seeing the different dimensions, how intention creates gravity waves, which attract atoms, photons, protons that create physicality. I've added a lot of that, and one of the interesting things that I've put in it as well is they go to this one planet to repair the dragonfly, and they're looking for a specific type of metal, and one of those type of metals is titanium. Well, they find it underneath all this ice on an ice planet. But what's interesting is that when they melt the ice, the metal is actually a door. And they open the door and go down underground to these caverns, and it's this entire civilization that has been asleep. They're in like a coma. And they use sound technology to put themselves to sleep, into hibernation. And they've been that way for quite some time. And some of them wake up and they begin to tell Dinar and their crew about what's going on. That particular piece of information and a couple of things that I've just shared with you regarding the cloud and jumping dimensions, that's all stuff that Mornay and Phaseus and the Andromedans, their people, their civilization has experienced some of these events that I put in the book of Dinar. And so that's that's my way of sharing some of this, was to put it in a children's book. I thought it would be safe and it would protect me. So that's why I started to do this, and it's going to be a trilogy. And, we're working at it to get it done. Or I'm working at it to get it done.
Excellent. Well,
so we'll see what happens.
You're almost answering the questions that I'm asking in my head as you speak, because I was just about to say, well, how many books have you got? And you said, well, it's going to be a trilogy. So it's like, don't worry about me not asking questions, because they're all coming. So this is, you've been talking in the webinars about a lot of new sciences and things like that. Does that match up with what, you've heard? I mean, you're saying, this is what's come from Mornay.
Well, a lot of the information they gave us in the 90s, it's interesting. It's becoming more relevant now than ever. So it's kind of like they were ahead of themselves, or they were way ahead and we're finally catching up. which is probably what it is with the information that they've shared. So, I would say yes. What's also interesting, and, other contactees have also shared some of this information, about who we are and the abilities that we have, the latent abilities, etc. And it's interesting to find quantum mechanics, quantum physics, physicists now proving the existence of not only spirituality, but of a higher power. What, we call God, other races call something else. But, what we're talking about is an organized consciousness that laid out a path for everyone to achieve the highest level of consciousness imaginable. And in truth, we're all, regardless of the dimensions that we're on, except maybe 12th, we're all pursuing that in one way or the other. We might get distracted in some lifetimes with material things or, doing stupid stuff, committing horrible crimes and going to the dark side, for lack of a better word. But we don't stay there. Those are experiences that in order to truly appreciate the light, you have to go to the dark. And sometimes you go so far into the dark that you're like, oh my God, I so don't want this anymore. And then what you do is you make a conscious decision to have a lifetime in the light. And it's all a process. And I can remember Phaseus once telling me that all the broken pieces always find their way home, meaning back to the isness, the creator, great spirit, God, whatever whatever label we use for that. So, that's always brought some comfort to me, because, we're all trying to figure it out, and we all want to figure it out. It may not be this lifetime, but it's an experience where we all get to a place where we really want to know what it's all about. And that's one of the unique things about Earth is there are so many levels of perspective here. And it would be really wonderful to have everybody on the same page about at least one thing. And they would, and JP, we were talking about this before we went on the air. We as a race, as a civilization, as a tribe or many tribes, we have got to figure out how to live together. We just do. We have got to stop all this war, all this nonsense. We do, because we're hurting each other, we're hurting the planet, and it's just irresponsible. There's no way to justify this type of behavior because it's so irresponsible. And I sincerely hope that, we get the mentorship and the help we need, and that it presents itself in such a way that everybody at least stops to think about the possibilities of learning to live together and actually living and having mutual respect for each other, healing the planet, being a true caretaker of the earth. And technology is just one side of it, just one piece of being able to live on the planet in a holistic way. We have got to change the way we think and how we look at ourselves and each other. There needs to be a fundamental shift there and change. And I think that will come, I genuinely believe that will come with more perspective, the more truth that comes out, about the fact that we're not alone, about how the galaxy works, how the universe works, the dimensional levels, how energy works. I can't help but imagine that people will stop and start to think differently about themselves and what it is that they want. So many things about the systems that we live under now, they just flat don't work. And, you know, sometimes you just can't fix something that's broken. You have to trash it, throw it away, and start something new. Something completely new, and build it from the ground up. And we don't have to wait for a catastrophe in order to do this. You know, this is something we can do together, collectively. All we got to do is stop yelling at each other and getting pissed off with each other and, you know, sit down and chat. Have a real conversation, a real heart-to-heart conversation about stopping all this bullshit and figuring out what's really important. And we all know what's important. The environment, ending hunger, ending poverty, raising our children safely, clean water, clean air. We all know. It just, everybody's so busy turning everything into a debate. And there are some things that just aren't debatable, you know? You're going to debate clean air? You're going to debate cutting down the deforestation? You're going to debate the protoplankton dying off so the oceans die and there's not enough oxygen on the planet? There's no debate about that. It is what it is. So I don't know. I just, everything's become so political. It's just, you know, we have got to figure out how to fix stupid. We really do.
Well, that's part of it, you know. Okay. Politics.
I'm rambling.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's getting to the nub of it is, there are people who are in the way. That's basically it, isn't it? There are people who are in the way who won't let peace happen because they'll get in far too much trouble, and they're already in trouble, and they're just kicking the can down the road so that they can't, so they don't get pulled up for what they've been doing. But at the same time, what they're doing is holding everybody else up and holding everybody else in war.
But I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. They're 2% of the world's population. The other 90% apparently are not tired of this bullshit yet, and they allow it to continue. You know, we are fully capable of choosing a different direction and moving in that direction. We are. Who says we have to continue to live with this system with them in control? Why does that have to be the only option? Why is it that we can't do something different until they're out of the picture? You know, why can't we as a humanity move in a completely different direction and wait for the swamp to be cleaned? That may take years to do.
So,
you know what I'm saying?
I do.
I don't want to wait any longer.
Exactly. So how do we personally clean up the air? And well, I suppose the first thing is in our lives, we have to get to talk to the people that we're at war with. Yeah? Something like that? Is that how it works?
Exactly. And what is the truth about the environment? Okay? What is the actual truth? The scientific truth, not left or right. What is the actual reality of the condition of the planet? That's the first thing. We need real data, not bullshit science. We need real truth, not political grandstanding because somebody wants donations for a cause that may or may not be real. That's the thing. You know, it has to start with that. We have to have some truth as to exactly what is going on with the environment, with the air, with the planet, with the sun. Why is the sun so hot that instead of infrared light, we're getting bombarded with ultraviolet light? Why is that happening? There's a lot of things we can talk about. A lot of things that most people don't even have a clue are happening. But they got to be able to take a stop, maybe turn off the TV, turn off the ball game, and say, you know what, this is worth investing in and finding out. We got to have this conversation, and people have to give a shit. You know, in the last webinar, JP, we talked about, well, I shared and I talked about something the A's had talked about a 120-year cycle, and regarding a procedure that happens on the planet. And I gave a number of 50-plus million people, children, are terminated each year, aborted. That's per year. In the last 10 years, that's more than the population of the entire United States. And in 120 years, that's essentially 3 generations, 3 full generations. And what happens is it becomes institutionalized. No one thinks a thing about it. It becomes birth control as opposed to real birth control. Now, I hate talking about this, and I'm extremely uncomfortable talking about it because I am not an expert. My hope was bringing it up so that there could be a conversation about this with everybody. Is this right? Is this absolutely something we have to do, or is there one or more other ways to go about this? Do you know what I'm saying? It's tough, and I don't even want to talk about it here, but I'm bringing it up as an example. You know, we do things because we think sometimes they're a quick fix or it will solve a problem in the short term, but what happens is on the back end, it becomes a huge problem, something that challenges everybody. And, you know, the Native Americans, the indigenous people, whenever they would look at a problem or they would have an issue, they would try to discuss it with the rest of the tribe, and they would talk about how will this affect the next 7 generations. We don't do that. We don't do that at all. Those conversations don't happen. Not in public, not with everybody. Maybe some, you know, dark, deep secret think tank might have a couple of those conversations, but humanity as itself doesn't. The whole tribe is not on the same page, and the whole tribe needs to be on the page with these things, because we, the people of the earth, we have to decide ourselves what direction we are going to go to move towards, what it is that we want. Why would we leave this up to governments or politicians? That's nuts. They can't even balance their own checkbooks. Why would we give them the keys to the kingdom and say, okay, wherever you think we need to go? I mean, look at the condition of the world. You know, they've done a terrible job, horrible job. And we got to take the keys back. We got to take the keys back. We got to take the wheels off the car and say, okay, you don't drive anymore. You're done. Give me your license. You're done. We're driving. We're taking over now, and we're going to go in this direction. But these are conversations we have to have. We have to really think this. We have to think differently here. I mean, soon they're going to tell us about the extraterrestrials. They're trying to figure out how to do it now, but soon they're going to tell us. And we have to not only be prepared for that, but you have to understand that this is about humanity. This is not about the aliens. Okay, they've been here, they've come and gone, they lived thousands of years. You know, they've been sitting up there watching civilizations come and go on this planet. This is really about us. It's always really been about us. It's about stepping into our power, stepping into maturity, stepping into adulthood as a civilization and wanting to do the right things, to make our civilization viable, survivable, and to prosper, and to at some point leave planet Earth and cohabitate the rest of the galaxy. We can't do that now because we can't even get along with each other. So why the hell would they want us out there? You know what I'm saying?
So again, it takes us back to the same question.
It does. It does. It's a loop. It's a loop. You know, it's all going to lead us right back to that. And, you know.
So
what do we want?
Exactly. So what do we
want?
What do we want?
We gotta have that conversation.
Exactly. So here.
We gotta have that conversation.
So back to that conversation, and also bringing in the whole reason that the A's came to knock on your door or, you know, pick you up at night or wherever in the first place. Something happened that was a terrible wrong that created a galaxy overtaken by tyranny.
Yes.
Somewhere.
I've shared all that.
Somewhere that hasn't happened yet? Has the nub of that?
No, it has not happened yet because they and others at all have come back and have been altering the events that lead to that so that it doesn't happen. And what's interesting is that in that discovery, in that intervention, and that's what it is, it's been an intervention, they have come across a group that many civilizations had really been looking for. And they had somehow mastered the ability of hiding in plain sight. And that turned out to be an absolute blessing for the galaxy, that they can wrap up this bunch, because apparently whatever they do from whatever they did created horrific events, not only in third density, but it cascaded into upper dimensions as well. So it was just cataclysmic. It was a catastrophe. The ramifications, God, what is the word I'm looking for? The wavelengths and the issues that it created for so many star nations was catastrophic. And apparently it was so subtle that they didn't see it coming until it arrived. So, and I don't know all of the details. I simply don't know all the details, and I know I don't know all the details. But I know enough that if it was something easy to fix, then they would have. And if it had something to do where they didn't have to bother helping us, they would have done it. But they obviously see something in us, in our tiny little planet and our civilization. They see something in us that is so unique that they're all taking the time and the resources to help us get on our feet and at least give us a chance to step into our own self-empowerment and to be able to do the right thing. And that's about us. That's not about them. This is about us. They've made it about us. And I think we have to look at that. I think we need to put all the shiny saucers to the side, put all the other crap to the side and say, okay, look at what's going on here. Why are they here? Why are they intervening? Why are they trying to help? What's this all about? We gotta have that conversation because it's about us. They're talking about us, you know? And we just can't pretend that it isn't about us. We just can't. We cannot ignore any of this anymore. We got to start having this conversation. And it frustrates me that, you know, you turn on the news and it's the cabal here, the swamp there. Yeah, that's an issue. But that's not the issue. The issue is, and always has been, who are we as a civilization and who do we want to be? What is it that we want? You know?
Sometimes.
I mean, we have this space fleet. We got this space fleet. And incredible technology. Magnificent. 500 to 750 years technologically more advanced than what we can imagine. And these are our people from Earth flying these things. And yet they can't really have a conversation with us about it because everything's so fucked up down here. Pardon my French. Okay? And that's sad. That is really, really sad. And it's sad that it was secret. It's sad that they did it all through black projects. It's sad that they tried to break away from us, but that's another issue. Why did they try to break away from us? Why didn't they want to include us in this adventure? You know, we got to have these conversations. It's time to do things differently. But we have to know what's really going on. And the only way we're really going to know is we have to stop fighting with each other and focus on those who have the knowledge and say, all right, it's time to give up. It's time to share what you know, what's going on, where are we going with this, where have we been. It's time for these conversations. And I'm not trying to sound like a broken record. But, you know, that's what we try to do with our little webinar is to talk about some of these things. And not everybody wants to have this. There's a level of people that listen that, you know, they're still information gatherers. They haven't made up their mind about anything. They're still, you know, looking at the YouTube videos of the ships, and that's great. But at some point you gotta get past that. And we gotta start thinking about why are they here? Why is it that they go to every military base, nuclear missile site in every single country and turn off our nukes? Just melt the circuit boards. Ladies and gentlemen, that's happened to everybody. Every single nation. So the nations know, the world's militaries know, you are not going to do this. Now, they haven't shared that with us, but those of us who are information gatherers and do the research, we know that that's what's happened. We know that's what's going on. And that's an interesting question. Okay, why are they doing it? Wouldn't it be easier if we just took ourselves out? Because we could easily do it. You know, I think some of us are really that stupid. We would do it just to prove they were right. But, you know, they're not going to let us do that. So, you know, we have to take a step back, and we're going to have to look at those hard questions and start asking the really hard questions. And, you know, we're out of time. We're out of time. All of this nonsense, we have got to put it aside, and we have to really start thinking about where we as a civilization want to go. Because the timeline for first contact is not far away. For full disclosure, it's not far away. And we're not talking 10, 15, 25 years, 50 years. We're not talking that. We are talking eminent proof. And then everybody's going to be forced to have the conversation. You know, but, you know, a portion of the population will probably freak out. Oh my God. You know. And, there's no need for that. There's no need for that. If we empower ourselves and we step up and we begin to have the conversations, whether anybody thinks these subjects are real or not, if we start changing our perspective, expanding our realm of possibilities and knowledge, what you'll find is that genetically we already have a lot of this information. We may even have answers to solve this already in our DNA, because we are all multidimensional spiritual beings in physical bodies with memory, cellular memory, spiritual memory, and that's how we have to start looking at ourselves. Because that's who we are. That's really who we are.
Now, I know many people have said, you know, kind of what you're saying, you know, we have it all within us, we know all the answers already, but, and, you know, the other question is, you know, if we do know the answers, how do we make the difference? Who do we talk to have the conversation with? How do we get to talk to the people who can make the difference? Do you see my circular issue here? Is like perhaps one has the feeling that some top brass general knows what's going on, but how is he going to be able to, or she going to be able to talk to the general public when all they're getting is Kim Kardashian and Kanye West?
Well, why is it that's all we want? Why is it that all we want is Kardashian and West? Why is it? Because that's the shit they're feeding us?
Well, exactly. You know, how do we get around? It's not that people are wanting it. That's all they're getting.
Well, JP. Whoa, JP. Let's look at England. The people of England wanted their country back. They wanted their sovereignty back. So issues were created which resulted in Brexit. The people voted on it. They want out. Now that's being compromised, or the appearance of being compromised, because people have lost interest and the powers that be slowly weaseling their way back in and undoing what the people wanted. How did the Declaration of Independence come about? Because enough people had had enough of tyranny. How did the Magna Carta get written? Because enough people were so done with the monarchy or the powers that be at that time, thinking they could do whatever the hell they wanted to anybody they wanted to do it to. How did all those things happen? India becoming free. How did those things happen? People made those things happen. People got together and made changes. Here in the United States, women's right to vote. How did that happen? The women made it happen. The freedom of, the end of slavery here in the United States. How did that happen? It took a horrific civil war with brother going to war against brother. And it happened. It eventually happened. People make the difference. People make the difference. Now, that doesn't mean we have to all have a civil war. That is not what I'm talking about. And I realize that the exopolitics community is still relatively small. But this conversation has to happen. We have to bring more people into this. And I don't know exactly how that's going to occur. It's probably going to take some mass flyover where 2/3 of the planet see it. I don't think they necessarily need to fly over the United States because most people here already believe in UFOs. Hell, California has more sightings than anywhere else on the planet, I think. And with good reason. God, I just lost my train of thought. I hate when that happens.
So it's again, it's how do people, right? So let's put it into today's context. In our today's context, the people communicate to each other very rarely through text messages, through Facebook, and all the rest of the time we're being bombarded from all angles with useless news, and irrelevant
stuff. So it's all
stuff.
a distraction.
It's all a distraction. Exactly, it's all a distraction. So
yes,
how do we work through, how do we make everything like this relevant? Because it's very circular. How do we get our power back without having, we British, we don't have any arms. We don't have the Second Amendment. Is it the Second Amendment? Or is it, yeah. So the one about being able to arm yourself against, tyranny. We haven't got that. We can't even go out into the streets with a pitchfork anymore. Without it getting taken away from us. We can't protest anymore. All those things don't work. Protests, petitions, they don't work. They haven't got the teeth anymore. Perhaps the only thing that we have that may work is not paying for things. And still, you have to pay for your fuel to keep yourself warm. They've got it all wrapped up. They know what they know how to grab us by the nuts. So how, it's like, what's the kind of, what I'm looking for? I'm not saying don't give us a solution.
Okay.
I'm talking about an approach.
No, I know where you're going. I know where you're going with this, and Einstein said it best. You can't resolve the problems of the world with the same thinking that created them. And I know exactly what you're saying. So here we have texting, internet. You can flash a news story, and inside of 10 minutes, it's reached 3.5 billion people, or the potential of 3.5 billion people in 10 to 20 minutes. And yet, we can't have a conversation about what it is what kind of a planet we really want to live on and what it is that we want. Everything that we see and we experience is the end result of thought, of consciousness. That's where it starts. That's where it begins. And that's what draws all this physicality to us. This is what quantum physics proves. Intent creates a gravity wave. Okay? This we know. They could prove this. We also know that each one of us, whether we're a knucklehead or not, has the ability to see 7, 9, or 11 dimensions. Our brains can see that, can understand it. We can't, but the brain does. It's already mapped for that. That is not an accident, and there's no way that that's there to be useless information. Nature doesn't do that, JP. Nature doesn't put anything there by accident, or if it's absolutely useless, it just doesn't do that. It's all there for a reason. It's there because at some point we're going to be using that. That's why it's there. I'm saying let's jumpstart it. Let's not wait for it to come to us. Let's move towards it. Let's move towards the knowledge, to the idea of creating conscious solutions that change the world. I mean, that's how we've gotten this far, was the ideas, the hopes, the dreams, the intentions of people. People that they wanted to travel, so they came up with the bridge. Across rivers, they came up with the idea to build a bridge. Then it was a train station. Then it was cars, airplanes, maybe not in that order. But all these things were dreamt up by people, we the people, to solve an issue, to overcome an obstacle. And that's my point. Let's have a conscious revolution. I mean, if we have the ability to talk to each other all over the planet, there has to be a way that we can share these different types of ideas. If a knucklehead like me can get it, so can everybody else.
Now, I'm sure you've asked the same question to them. And they said, well, consciousness creates, intention creates creates effects. Did they give you any approach? Because, to make it more tangible, we need to be able to not only listen to teachers telling pupils, but we want to be able to hear what children are saying. Wouldn't this be? How do we get to hear the children? Because they're all being told how the world is, and if you want to change the world, well, you have to grow up, you have to go to school, you have to go to university, you have to specialize, and then maybe one day you'll have some kind of influence when you're like 40 or 50. And that's no way. These children have got the answers now. How do we turn the whole thing upside down?
You're right.
This is the problem to me.
I don't know yet. You're right, and it is an issue. And I wish I had the rest of my notes that are still in storage, but I don't. I mean, I have got to figure out how to get those. I don't have all the answers, JP. I just don't. And it keeps me up at night because I try to solve these problems. I ask myself these kind of questions all the time. How to figure this out. And I don't always get an answer when I ask a question of Mornay. And it's not that I don't think he knows. Actually, I really don't know what he thinks. But sometimes I suspect that they figure we can get this, that we can figure this out, and in figuring it out, we will empower ourselves to take on greater obstacles. There are a lot of really smart people on this planet. There are a lot of really spiritual people on this planet, gifted people on this planet, loving people on this planet. In fact, most of the people on this planet are like that. You know, the real shitheads, they're only a very small percentage. But that's all we hear about, and that's by design. We have got to figure out how to shift that. And I'm open. I am open to ideas. I'm just trying to start the conversation. I don't have all the answers. If I did, I would absolutely share those. I can tell you honestly, fervently, every day I'm trying to come up with solutions to these type of things. And I ask most of the right questions all the time. I just don't always get an answer.
So there's some.
I heard that side. I so get it.
Yeah,
I do. I so get it. Believe me, I so get it.
Because you know.
I do. I so get it.
But the other thing, you know, in a way, I can see it's like having a child, and there's a bicycle. The child says, "I want to go down to the beach." You know, the beach is only a few hundred yards away, and there's a bicycle lying there, and you're just standing there, and the child says, "I want to go to the beach. Can I go to the beach?" And it says, "Yeah." And you know, you might say, "Yeah." But it's up to the child to pick the bike up and get on it and ride. But maybe the child's never seen a bicycle before. Do you see my thing? There's a feeling that there's,
well, yes,
it's something that we know.
And that's why
go ahead.
And well, that's why they have suggested that there would be mentorship by many different star races that we could relate to. At some point, they would step in and mentor us to help us get over some of these obstacles and these hurdles. But we're going to have to want to make that change. Do you know what I'm saying? We're going to have to be at a place, I believe, this is my perception, that we're going to have to be in a place where we want to make these changes and seriously think about the suggestions that these more advanced races will talk to us about changing how we're doing things now, completely changing our perspective on who we think we are, what we think we are, in order to make significant changes for humanity as a whole, to make leaps and bounds. I don't know that we're ready for that yet. I don't know. I mean, I watch the news and it's just, oh my God. I hope we're ready. I don't know if we're ready. But I'm tired of sitting around waiting for it to happen. It's just like I feel like we need to move towards it instead of waiting for it to come to us. Do you know what I'm saying?
There's something, again, it's like there's something that we need to take a step towards. That's why I say, is there an approach? We need to take a step towards something that will totally embody our desire to live in a happy, peaceful world. But maybe that's not what we really want. I mean, is that what we want, to live in a happy, peaceful world? Or do we want to live in a happy, peaceful galaxy or a happy, peaceful universe? You know, there's a level, isn't there? But also,
well, yeah, but let's just talk about us and Earth right now.
Okay.
That's a big question, and that's down the road. Let's just talk about ourselves right now, today, in the moment. What would most of us want? And that's a conversation we need to have. Because then we can at least agree on what it is that we're stepping towards or want to step towards. You know, maybe baby steps, but it's something. And then, you know, I'm trying to figure it out. I am, just like everybody else, I'm trying to figure it out.
So here's you know.
I wish I was.
You wish you were.
Go ahead. Well, I'm going to show my age here. I wish I was the Shell Answer Man who had all the answers, but I'm not. You know, all I can do is share with you guys, you know, where I'm at, where I think there are hopeful abilities and things that we can move towards. And like so many, I'm frustrated. I'm sick and tired of waiting for the change. I think what we have to do is we have to move forward and demand the change and make the change ourselves. We need to step towards the change we want instead of waiting for the change to show up. That's my point. In a nutshell, it took me, an hour and 11 minutes to get there. Damn. But that's it. And it has to be us. It has to be a joint effort. Sorry, that's my windshield wipers. It's raining.
Raining? Is it raining there? God. So yeah, it's you know, like the thing is, be the change you want. You know, bring what you want, what you expect to find. All of these things. I'm still, and I'm just kind of being a human here. I'm still nonplussed as to the all right, so it's like there's something we're doing that is keeping this thing alive, keeping this, you know, the something that humanity is doing, maybe unconsciously, that is keeping the cabal alive and in control of us. And it's like I'll take it personally, I don't realize what it is that I'm doing or saying that is keeping them alive and in power. Is that another way? Is that a better way of putting it? Is there something that we need to stop doing?
Well, yeah.
What's the deal?
Well, okay. Well, that's why we're having the conversation, to figure out the deal. But you know, what you hate, what you oppose, will always persist, because that's where your focus is. So, you know, energy flows where focus goes. And we're probably so conditioned to focus on what we don't want that that's all we're getting is more of what we don't want, as opposed to really focusing on what it is we do want and staying in that space. All of us. Is focusing only on what we want and shifting the energy that way. Maybe that's the secret. Because you turn on the TV, all you hear is this, and this. It's all negative. Almost all of it's negative. 95% of it's negative. And that's what we're programmed with, is all this negative. And we've had these conversations as well in past webinars about, you know, remaining neutral. And maybe that's what it is. Humanity has to really sit down individually and focus only on what you want and not spend any time focusing on what you don't want, because you're only going to create more of what you don't want because that's what you're focused on. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's really that simple. Or maybe it's not.
Wow.
You know, if this was easy, everybody'd be doing it, you know?
Exactly. I mean, maybe what if I want to be able to scoot around in a little craft, a mile up in the sky, going from one place to another, hanging out and doing stuff. The whole idea of money.
Well, you're going to have flying cars. You're going to have a flying car in the next 5 years. So you're almost there, JP.
Well, yeah. Well, I've been waiting for my gravity drive car. I've been talking about it for the last 7 years. But it's all about money. It's always been about money, and money, we know, is the control system that keeps us enslaved. Money and taxes and all of this stuff. Now, we know, well, we've been hearing there's going to be an RV, there's going to be an RV. It's like the end of the world. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It never happened. We haven't been given any of these things that we've heard are ever coming. So let's say they never ever come. How can we become the great manifestors regardless of the state of politics, regardless of the state of the news? How do we manifest? I know I'm asking you, this is a big question. How do you manifest with this kind of negative belief system that we have? If manifestation is all about belief, isn't it?
Yes, that's exactly right. Now let's go back to the RV. Even when it happens, and I don't share your viewpoint, even when it happens, it's still a temporary fix. It's just temporary. What it'll do is free up a lot of people. It'll change some things. It'll change a lot of people's perspective, and it will eliminate the control mechanisms that have so hurt humanity for so long. But again, it's only a temporary fix. It only buys us a window of time. At some point, we're going to have to change our entire perspective on money. But at least we'd be able to have that conversation by creating a lot of abundance for doing incredible things to end homelessness, to end hunger, to free up a lot of technology that has been hidden. A lot of these things will come about because of this change, because the control structure will essentially be neutered. But it's not the fix. It is not a permanent fix. All it does is buy us a window of more time. That's important to know. We keep coming back to the question, what does humanity want? What kind of a world does humanity want? That's what it is. That's the question. That has to be answered. Because if we don't make up our mind and declare what it is that we want, we're just going to get someone else who's going to come and take control in the form of governments and say, okay, this is what you're going to do. We're going to lead you down this road. And I have yet to see truly benevolent any politician or government. I really haven't seen it. So, there you go.
Yeah, well, I don't believe the government is here to make peace, or to make life any better for humanity. It just seems to be the opposite of that.
No, they want to remain in power. That's what it is. That's what it is.
And it's our power that they are remaining in.
Well, we give them the power. And then we resign ourselves to the fact that we can't change anything after that. You know? And that's the big mistake. That's the letdown. That's the lie. That we have to resign ourselves because this is just the way it is. You know, the monarchies of old, they had no people there. They weren't a king of anything. Okay? People created government. People created countries. People then created governments to manage the country and or foreign affairs. The government didn't create the people. No, not at all. We got it all backwards. And understand, I'm not anti-government. I'm anti-corrupt government. Big time. And who wouldn't be anti-corrupt government? Who wouldn't be? Except those who are corrupt. You know, they'd be thrilled with the way things are in light of that.
So we want a government that enables.
You want to talk about anything else?
Yeah, we want a government that enables. Let's kind of just shift sideways from this, because at the moment there's this talk of the space fleet, which I find just a very exciting thing, you know, even though I'm British, you know, and we don't have a space fleet. We've got maybe have a couple of boats or something. But Trump has been talking about a space fleet. We've been hearing, and we heard from you, about a space fleet that already exists, and that there was mutiny in this space fleet. Do you want to, I mean, I know your webinar people have heard this already, but there was something that happened. I'd like, if you can, to share what happened that turned the space fleet around and made them decide to help us.
Here's what I know, and this happened in stages. Leaving our solar system, they came in contact with other races. Those other races, through conversations and creating and learning dialogue so that they could communicate with each other, they began to share some history. And that history that they shared was other extraterrestrial races and their relationship to planet Earth and to our human civilization. Through those dialogues, it became known that much of the alien civilizations that are on our planet and underground that were controlling and manipulating Earth governments was dark. Very self-serving and dark. Now, there have been benevolent groups on the surface, boots on the ground, observing for quite some time. And they keep very much to themselves, as they should, because we are an extremely paranoid culture. Race. Well, that information began to be shared. And at some point, the powers that be decided that they were not going to allow our space fleet to go and stray very far from home. And as you can imagine, the people within this space fleet, once you become a part of a program like this, you essentially surrender your private life. You don't come and go. You know, you don't have children on the planet. You know, you don't go to their first day of school. You don't do any of that. You essentially are completely off the grid. That's how these black projects work. You are off the grid. And for the most part, you don't interact with people outside of the program. As personnel would get older, it was the belief of many in the program that once they reached a certain age, they were given money and they were brought back to Earth to finish out, given a new identity, etc. That turned out to be a lie. It turned out when they were doing the farewell parties and the such, and they were being taken from one ship or from one unit, and they were being taken to a place, to another station where they would be brought home. What turned out to be true is that they were put in an airlock and just sent out into space. And this became evidence when they began to find the bodies of the people who were supposed to be down on Earth finishing out their golden years. And that was the game changer. That was the game changer at that point. Because then they realized that pretty much everything that they had been told had been a lie, that the powers that be were playing everybody against each other. And already having a base knowledge of what was going on the surface, they decided that they were going to have to do something. And more or less a revolution, a rebellion, began to formulate. Now, one of the things that also was shared with our space fleet, and I think that they were quite surprised based on the knowledge of our history that was shared with them, was that most of these benevolent races, there was no way that they felt that it was appropriate for the space fleet to go out and try to colonize other parts of the galaxy while leaving the rest of their race to die without helping them or making any effort to help them. And it didn't matter to them, the benevolence now, that the Space Fleet was following orders. Because any military person knows if you're given an unlawful order, you don't have to follow it. And being of higher moral character and higher consciousness, they were able to prevail upon those of our space fleet that they had contact with, that this whole deal sucked. And I'm sure they didn't put it in those words, that this whole deal sucked. And that if you do this to your own, how is it that you expect to have the respect of other races out there? How could we possibly respect you if you did this to your own race? So there you go. And that leads us to where we are today. With a lot of information coming out, being leaked, whistleblowers, more and more people are seeing the triangular TR series craft and the motherships in the atmosphere of Earth around the moon. There's even some YouTube videos showing some of our TR3s, some of our older models, assisting our military on the ground. There's a lot of things going on. In fact, they're also protecting Air Force One when it's in the air. Now, I don't know if this is true of other governments, but I will just tell you this, they're not all American pilots. There have to be Brits. There have to be others who are a part of this, maybe not technologically, but they know. They know that this is going on because it's impossible to put something like this together without the technical assistance of the world. But again, this is dark. This is all black budget, and the money that would have to be created to do something like this is in the hundreds of trillions of dollars. That would take a large effort, which means that would involve not only the Federal Reserve of the United States, I'm sure it involved the Rothschilds, the banking center of world banking in London would have to be a part of this. And, these are all the dirty little secrets that will be coming out. And I think there'll be some outrage for a short amount of time. But once the technology is released to assist and help humanity, I think people will move on, and they'll get really focused on trying to make the world a better place. For example, the planet is 2/3 water, even though it's salt water. Why in the hell haven't we been building desalinization plants all over the world? It's lunacy. California, Florida, the East Coast, Canada, Mexico. Why haven't we been building desalinization plants all over the place so that everybody has water? It's nuts. It's nuts. Poor planning, it's short-sightedness, and actually the whole purpose for it was to have more control over humanity by not allowing this to happen. So it's just the same old shit, which is why we have to take over. We have to step up and empower ourselves to change the planet, to focus on what we want. There's just no excuse not to do these things. We waste trillions of dollars on wars that accomplish nothing, absolutely nothing, but to make defense contractors rich, when we could be doing all this other stuff to help humanity. I don't get it. I just don't get it. I mean, I do get it. I just don't know why it continues, and we tolerate this. It's crazy.
It is indeed, and that's
JP,
you're needing to get going.
I am.
Alex, it's been.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah. I can probably fill the rest of the time with some music and until the healings and meditations group. It's only about half an hour. But it's been good to talk with you. Good to discuss a bit of really, because we speak on the webinars, and most of the time you talk and then I ask questions, and I never get a chance to ask any questions that bubble up in me. And this is because you say we need to empower ourselves. Okay, what does that look like? How does that smell? How do we invert this situation? Because this is the problem. We need to invert the whole situation. So maybe this is what we all need to be thinking about. How do I, me, and you, and everybody who's listening, me, change the way we're being so that things turn out the right way instead of always the wrong way coming back to us? And really, I think that's the conversation we need to have with ourselves. Is that not?
Yes, it's true. It is absolutely true. I mean, clarification of the goal belongs in the beginning, not at the end. And what I mean by that is that each one of us individually has to know what it is that we want. We don't necessarily have to be a hive mentality. We can all agree on a parameter of things that would be beneficial for the entire planet and the civilization. But that doesn't mean that we can't want what we want as well, that we cannot have what we want as well. So, we have to change our parameters and our perspective on things. And that's not always easy. Because we don't know if we're doing it right. But if you focus on what it is that makes you happy, that genuinely makes you happy and fulfills you, how can that be wrong? How can that be wrong? As long as you're not hurting someone else.
Exactly. So, I think that's essentially it. Lady Rebecca sends her love. All the rest of the audience here in Wolf Spirit Radio chat room are sending their blessings and thanks. And I hope you've had an enjoyable afternoon chatting with me in the car while it's raining.
I have. Thank you. It's always an honor and a privilege to be on your show. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. This has been Ever Beyond. Good night, everybody.